Hello YouTube, and welcome to another episode of our interview series. We are joined today by a very special guest, Alessandro Castellani, who is currently the Thunderbird Lead UX Architect at Mozilla, has huge experience in UI UX, software development, product management, and is just a very interesting person overall. Now, if his name sounded familiar, it can also be thanks to his YouTube channel named after him, where he creates WordPress-related content. I hope you enjoy our today's discussion about the most common mistakes in WordPress by agencies and freelancers, and if you do, don't forget to subscribe to our YouTube channel for more amazing content about WordPress.
This video is brought to you by 10web, automated WordPress platform specifically designed for agencies. Sign up for a 14-day free trial right now and experience the true innovation.
Hey Alex, happy to have you here.
Oh, thank you so much for having me. I'm happy to be here as well.
So thanks for accepting our invitation. And let's start off with a little bit of backstory. Tell us about your career in tech, your transition from different positions. Was that easy for you or no? And at which stage did you discover WordPress?
Oh, okay. So yeah, I started my career in tech when I was 18. Now I'm 35, so you do the math. I started as a designer first. I wanted to be a designer. I always liked drawing. And I started doing some web design on the side while I was studying. And then I found out that you can actually build the thing that you design, which was very, very cool. So I started doing some very low-level HTML, some CSS. 15 years ago, CSS didn't even have floating divs. So I was very, very bad. But then like after 3 years of university, I got my first job as a web developer. I was doing just some very simple PHP. And I had my first experience with WordPress at that agency back in Italy. I'm originally from Italy. I was born in Rome. I lived there 27 years. And there was this necessity from a client to have a very simple CMS. And I was curious. I tried like Joomla and Drupal. If I'm not wrong, Drupal was a version 1 or version 2. And then I stumbled upon WordPress. And because I knew PHP quite well, I felt immediately comfortable with WordPress. It was easy to manipulate, easy to hack. At the time, it was very, very simple. So I started using WordPress and I actually never stopped. All the client websites were built in WordPress and I started building in WordPress, and I stayed in that agency for 5 years. And then when I was 27, I decided to move to Canada and leave my country forever. So I moved to Canada and I had to basically in Canada restart from scratch because my school certificates and my graduations and all this stuff didn't really matter in Canada because they weren't, of course, from the same country. So I went back to being a junior developer. And because I was forced to restart from scratch, I pushed myself to relearn the basics. So I started studying a lot database management. I started experimenting with AWS. And then at the same time, I started playing a lot with JavaScript. I learned Angular, Vue.js, more recently React. And now I've been living in Canada for 7 years. Throughout those 7 years, I changed job like 4 or 5 times. Every time it was kind of like, I want to do something different because I've been teaching myself all these years different things and I needed the challenge. So one time I was a junior developer. Then I switched after 4 years. I got hired as a product manager for a startup in Vancouver. And I took also on the role of a creative director there. And then I switched back to a more developer-oriented job. And then I got hired by Thunderbird, which is pretty much C++, Rust, and JavaScript. So for me, it's very hard to define myself in a specific light because everything that it's design and development, I love everything. So it doesn't matter if it's Laravel or Ruby on Rails or .NET or PHP, I'm gonna do it because I love it. So yeah, and I never stopped doing WordPress. For the past 15 years, I just did WordPress nonstop for personal websites, for clients' websites, for big agencies, small agencies. Yeah, I love it. That's pretty much it.
What was like key one thing that hooked you to WordPress? Was it the simplicity you just mentioned, or maybe something else?
Yeah, it was the simplicity of the source code. All the other alternatives, like as I said, Drupal and Joomla, they were trying to be too smart. There was a lot of like object-oriented programming, very complex modularity. WordPress is just function after function, and every function was named to do one thing. So in order to create a custom theme or a custom menu, you add one function and you can just hack it and use it and override it. And I also liked how the core of WordPress was completely separated from the theme. So you can mess up the theme, you can destroy it and crash it, but it doesn't matter. You just change theme and your website is back up. You don't affect the core. Instead, in Drupal and Joomla, if you mess something up, at least at that time, you had to reinstall your entire installation because you crushed it entirely.
Yeah, got it. And that's actually a great point. And one last question about your background, because it's really interesting since you are looking at WordPress from kind of different perspectives, right? You are both designer, developer, product manager. So when you were changing those positions, right? Was your background helping you out in those transitions? Was it a huge help, or it was completely from scratch?
No, it definitely was a huge help. I had sort of like an extra, like a leg up compared to my competition. I don't know if we want to call it that way, but the fact that there's like especially when you build a website, there's a pipeline. You start from design, then you do some prototyping, then you do some development, then you do the deployment, and then you do the testing in between. And because throughout the years, I basically cover all those steps, I was able to have a better understanding of the whole process, of the clear idea. So even if at one job I was doing just design, and another one I was doing just product development, and another one I was doing just development or deployment or doing DevOps engineering, because of all the past years of trying to do everything by myself and trying to learn everything by myself, I was able to adapt pretty quickly. Some people told me that, especially when I moved here, you shouldn't be a generalist. You should be a specialist. You should just focus on one area and do that good. Because they were saying to me that you're a generalist and you're basically average in everything, but you're not an expert in something. And I told them pretty much every time they told me that, I was like, no, but I want to be an expert in everything. And so, yes, there are some areas where I'm not very good, but I can learn and I can improve. And I don't know, I feel like I still have a lot to learn, but the fact that I pushed myself in trying to learn as much as possible in many fields as possible gave me the extra stamina to better adapt to different roles.
Oh, that's a very inspiring journey, I would like to say. And
thank you.
It just motivated to just, once we finish this interview, to go and read something about my profession, or maybe just completely new one.
Yeah, absolutely. Why not? We have the time, we have the resources. The internet is a beautiful place. So just learn every day something new. It's amazing.
Okay, so going directly to the main topic of our interview, what do you personally consider to be the biggest mistakes that agencies and freelancers do, like while using WordPress?
Underestimating WordPress. Like, this is the first thing that I did in the past, and I saw it many times. Underestimating WordPress in a way that, oh, WordPress is just a very simple PHP program. It's very it's sometimes it's considered silly, sometimes it's considered not good enough, and they hack it in a quick way just because it's easy to create a custom theme and then just release a website and that's it. But WordPress is much more powerful than that. And if you don't actually follow the rules of WordPress, you're going to have a very hard time. As soon as one update is released, as soon as one plugin is released, your product will be destroyed because you didn't follow the rules. You underestimated WordPress. That, okay, it's just a bunch of PHP function. That's it. So yeah, going in with the conviction that being convinced that WordPress is just a silly thing that you do it on the side and it doesn't require a good developer or a lot of time to do something good and solid and maintainable. That's a very huge mistake that pretty much everyone does.
Yeah, that's actually a really great point. And I can agree with you. I couldn't agree more with you. I have done the same mistake myself when I just wanted to build a WordPress website. And then at one point I got stuck because of not having enough experience in it. What else do you think people do as like top mistakes in WordPress?
Oh yeah, something that actually happened with a client of mine that I cannot name, but it's a quite a big client here in Vancouver. We took over when I was working as a digital in a digital agency. We took over a massive website which also had an e-commerce built in. And the first thing that I saw when I opened their backend was probably like 55 plugins installed. It was outdated by 3 major releases. If I'm not wrong, was version 4.7 was the most recent, and they were stuck at like 3.9 or something like that because they couldn't upgrade. Their database was filled with a million different tables that weren't even used by WordPress anymore. It was just a mess. So another massive mistake is just thinking the client asks something and your first response is like, oh, let's use a plugin. So you keep adding plugin after plugin, and it's gonna explode. It's terrible. Plugins are awesome, but you should literally like not use them as much as possible. Just use very few plugins if you cannot code yourself what you need. But otherwise, if you have too many plugins, is just atrocious to maintain, and you open yourself up for vulnerabilities, and it slows everything down. It's
Yeah, and then you update one of those plugins and the remaining 40 stop working.
Yeah, exactly.
And
yeah.
so forth.
Yeah, and it's related to also the first point because you use WordPress without actually knowing how WordPress works. And a lot of developers do that. They think, okay, I'm a WordPress developer. That means I installed a pre-built theme and I tweak it a little bit. And then I installed 20 different plugins to have the results that I want, without understanding that each theme, each plugin installs by itself custom resources, custom JavaScript, custom CSS, the PHP methods inside, if they don't respect the security standard, they're open for HTTP attacks, or they open for cross-site hacking. It's all these things. And one other thing that it's related to this, like most of the times WordPress is used for clients that they need a website. So you build that monster of a website with a million plugins, then you give it to the client and you say, okay, that's it, it's done. Don't touch it anymore. Don't do anything. And then the client finds itself with, I don't know, after 2 years with an outdated monster that it's non-maintainable, and maybe the original author of that plugin doesn't even work anymore because it doesn't want to update it. So it's just a mess. So very few plugins, please.
So you mentioned some plugins, and there is always this issue when installing one, whether you should pay for a plugin or go with a free one, and there are a lot of different choices in the market. So how would you recommend?
The first thing that I would recommend is just ask a developer to pick a plugin for you. Never ask the client, or never, if you're not a developer, don't take that decision by yourself. Don't pick the plugin based on how much it costs or how many reviews it has, because also reviews might be skewed. A lot of reviews, a lot of plugins, especially WordPress has been around for many, many years. A lot of plugins have a million reviews, but are from 3-4 years ago and they haven't been updated. So it might be tricky to pick a plugin from that. Usually paid plugins are better, but like between quotes, are better than free plugins, but not really. And it's always better to, ask a developer that knows about the plugin to choose for you, because most of the times paid plugins, they have so many functionality and so many features that you don't even need. And you can achieve the same thing with a very simple plugin that does one thing, or most of the times you don't even need the plugin. You can code it by yourself if it's a very simple implementation, and that's more stable. Yeah, that would be my advice.
Yeah, thanks for that valuable advice. And also regarding like the overload of plugins, there are currently in the market solutions of like automated WordPress management platforms, hostings, like 10web is, for example.
Yeah.
So what do you think about those fully automated solutions that also include plugins that are usually made by the same company, so they make sure everything works together well?
I think that's one of the best decision you can make if you don't have an experienced developer in-house. If you have many clients, or you're just a digital agency that does mostly design and you don't have developers, just use those platforms. Use those services that they manage the WordPress for you. They know what they're doing, and they offer tools, like a lot of tools, that they work good together. Because the other issue of using many plugins is that you don't know if those 3-4 plugins that you're using are made to work with each other, because it's impossible to know until you try. Instead, using these in-house solutions like 10web, it's a good compromise to have a good product, and you don't have to worry too much about maintaining it, or, oh, if I update this plugin, will it crash my entire website or not? It's just 99% of the time, no, it's going to be fine, because they take care of that for you. So I think it's a good business model, and it's one of the things why I like WordPress. It empowered a lot of these companies to create these tools in order to enable users that don't have access to the cache, or don't have access to an experienced developer, to build something that it's good and it's stable, without creating a monster that just collapses after 2 weeks. So they're good solutions.
Thanks for that. And also you mentioned monsters and websites crashing.
Yeah.
So in your experience, does it happen a lot when clients or agencies do not back up their websites frequently enough?
Yeah, all the time. You have no idea how many times we were hired to fix the mess of someone else. And very simple things, just not properly simple things from my point of view, but for a non-experienced developers, maybe those are not simple things, because one of the things that WordPress has, it's a very easily accessible wp-config.php file where all your database information are listed there. So if you don't block the direct root access of your server, anyone that has an SSH enabled thing can access it and can read everything. So it happened a lot that these agency, they weren't set up properly, and a lot of times users accidentally logged in and changed removed a semicolon, or deleted accidentally one letter, which was the letter of the password of the database, and no one had the backed up database password. So now the database is not accessible. No one knows where the database is stored, all these crazy things, because the same thing, like you can build a WordPress website very easily without knowing all the technical stuff, but crushing it is very simple. Or another thing that I love, and a lot of people do, and it drives me crazy. WordPress has these global variable called WP_debug, which if you set to true, it prints out all your PHP debug information on your page. If there's something wrong, there's a function that doesn't work, or if there's something like there's a mistake in the PHP that doesn't crash your website but triggers a warning, it just prints it on the page, which is super great when you're developing it. But when the website is ready and the client uses it, you should set the variable to false. So it doesn't print all your PHP errors on your page. It doesn't just print your debug on the page. And a lot of people don't do it. And I'm like, why? So yeah, it's beautiful. So yeah, it's unfortunately is more common that I would like to see, just websites crashing all of a sudden, or maybe people, they install a plugin that doesn't support their PHP version installed on their server, or install the third jQuery library on top of other jQuery libraries that I already have, and that causes a million different JavaScript console errors and nothing works. So yeah, it's very common.
Yeah, I'm sure the quantity of people will decrease after this interview, because you described it in a very visual way of what happens when you don't do that.
Yeah, it's terrifying. It's brutal. And please back up your database. WordPress has amazing built-in tools to do weekly backups. Just back up your database somewhere else, not in the same server, not in the same location, just somewhere else, locally or another server. Please do it.
I know that you are also doing consulting for agencies, which I'm sure in many cases manage multiple clients. So how would you recommend managing multiple clients using WordPress, and what tools would you recommend to use with it?
Managing multiple clients with WordPress, I personally don't use WordPress to manage multiple clients, because if I don't know if you saw my website, it's very simple. I wanted to keep it very simple, very easy to update. I use like other tools to decide, mostly Google Calendars, to keep track of all the stuff with the different clients. For the client itself, I use personally a password manager because of course, as soon, like the first thing that happens when I get a client with a WordPress website, they give me full access to their backend and database, which it's another mistake. Don't immediately give out your administration password to anyone, even if it's a consultant. Just create a separate moderator account for them. So the first thing that I do, I get that password and I create a lower level account for myself, so I cannot accidentally destroy their thing, and just, I tell them, update your password, please. That's one of the main things that I do. And then it's I don't really have a unified approach. It's a base to base approach, depending on things. Most of the times it's a matter of they don't have a developer in-house that they can call all the time. So I'm on call when something breaks, or there's an update that they're not sure what to do, or they want to change something drastic that they cannot do it with a page builder or things like that. Other times, which are more rare, it's more of a restructuring of the whole process of how to build these things, and how to like, for example, I had a client last year that it was always late with their clients, and they couldn't understand why. They were always like, we don't understand. We get the client, we start building with WordPress, and then we're always out of timeline, out of schedule. We can never deliver it on time. And the reason was because they were showing the client, and this is a simplification of the problem. Basically, they were showing the client how easy was to update WordPress, and they gave full administration access to the client, and the client during the weekend was updating WordPress with things they wanted to do, like, oh, I really like this other thing here, so I installed it. Can you make it work? So it was always, it never had a finished list of features. It was always like, can you change this? Can you add this? Can you do this? And they were doing other things on the side and changing things in the background. So they weren't strict with their timeline, but that was more a management, like a project management issue. So yeah, I think that answered the question, I guess.
Yeah, it did. Thank you. And you mentioned that majority of these mistakes are coming from not knowing WordPress well enough. So what are some of the standards that agencies, freelancers, developers, everyone who is using WordPress should know?
Yeah, a very solid knowledge of PHP. That's absolutely necessary. I don't like to say at least 5 years of PHP, because years in experience are very relative. It doesn't really matter. You should know the difference between procedural and object-oriented programming. A developer that knows how to build a theme or a plugin from scratch without using pre-made resources. That's very important, because if you know those parts, you know what are the REST API, you know how to interface with the settings API, you know how to interface with the database, and you know what is necessary to make something work by building it from scratch, and you're pretty set to go. Of course, you don't need to understand the core, or you don't need to know every single file that is in the WP includes folder. Like those are, no, you're not an automatic developer, so you don't need to know those things. But knowing how to build everything from scratch without relying on any plugin or any pre-built theme, I think that's the basic requirement that everyone should have before saying, yes, I'm a WordPress developer. If you don't know those things, you're more a WordPress builder than a developer. You use the blocks to build things without really understand how they connect to each other. So that's the first mistake. Having a developer that has a little bit of PHP experience, a little bit of JavaScript, and say, yeah, I can do WordPress, it's fine. And instead, it's not.
Okay, got it. So a follow-up question. What do you think is the formula that makes agencies and freelancers successful?
Formula.
If it exists, of course.
And I think there are like best practices or like more guidelines. I don't know if there's at least I don't know if there's a formula, but I think, like, especially from my experience, the most successful interaction with clients, or we had in the past when I was working at a digital agency, like big clients that were recurring, wanted to have us on rotation, wanted to have us on retainer. So always available, even if their website was very solid. And I think one of the big mistakes that these agencies don't do is training the client to understand WordPress. Because definitely every agency in the world can build a WordPress website and release it and sell it and then move to the next client. But if you spend a little bit of extra time and even a little bit of extra resources and money with the client, you teach them how to use it, you teach them what not to do and how to keep their website good and active, then yes, you make them independent from you, but you create a better trust and a better relationship, and they will always come back. At the beginning, before I was hired to this digital agency, the idea was, let's not tell the client that they can update WordPress by themselves. So they can always call us. But then there was this always level of frustration from the clients. Like, I don't understand why I needed these. I tried to do it and I crushed it. So I'm tired that I always have to call you whenever I need to do anything. So making the client independent and showing them that you trust them and you want to empower them to be independent, I think that's a part of the formula to be successful.
Yeah, that's certainly very important, like to explain things to the clients so they are aware of what was happening, what was all the work done. And we talked a lot about mistakes already. And what is the biggest mistake you have done, like related to WordPress, of course?
Do I have to tell you? I logged into via SSH into the production database, thinking it was the stage database, it was the development database, and I deleted the entire database because I thought it was the development environment. Instead, it was the production environment. And we didn't have a backup because it was the day after we released the new website. And the development database was 3 weeks behind the actual production database. So in one command, one SSH command, I deleted, this was a very big client with a very big e-commerce. They lost 15,000 users because of what I did. So my mistake was leaving my personal SSH key on the production database of the client. And yeah, that's no, don't do that. It's more, it's not really WordPress related. It's more like development related. For a WordPress related thing, I'd say I manually updated a theme directly via SSH. Like I didn't download the theme and change the code, tested locally, and then pushed it back on the server. I accessed the server and I changed the PHP code on the fly, and I saved the file directly on the server without realizing that I wrote a bug and I crashed the website and I couldn't back it up because I overwritten the file directly. So yeah, never work directly on the server. Always download it locally and do things locally.
Okay, so enough talking about mistakes.
Yeah, thank you.
Now let's switch to
my
reputation.
Solutions. Yeah.
We can cut this part if you want.
Please, yeah. No one will contact me anymore. No, I made that mistake 7 years ago, so I haven't done that mistake since. So yeah, I'm better now.
We learn from our mistakes.
Oh yeah, that was a bad week.
So yeah, enough talking about mistakes. Now let's go to solutions. And how can people avoid this common WordPress mistakes? Where can they find necessary information? What forums should they follow to get up-to-date information about everything and not do any of those screw-ups?
Oh yeah, the majority of the mistakes can be avoidable with a little bit of like following basic tutorials and basic guides to create a WordPress theme from scratch or a plugin from scratch. You can literally do that in a week. It's very easy and you can follow those tutorials. My website has a lot of tutorials, or like my YouTube channel, I do a lot of tutorials about WordPress. So you can follow those directly. The official WordPress documentation, it's not super easy to understand it the first time that you see it, but that's very important. You need to learn how to read the official WordPress documentation, especially the official Gutenberg documentation. Gutenberg is a very big thing now, which is creating a lot of issues to a lot of agencies. Read the documentation, study it until you don't, of course, you don't have to remember everything on the top of your head, but you need to know how to search things in the official documentation. You cannot go to Stack Overflow every time you have a problem. That's not going to cut it. Another important thing is do not rely on jQuery all the time. jQuery comes built into WordPress, and sometimes, most of the times, it's an outdated version because for security reason or for compatibility reason, WordPress is backward compatible down to version 4.2, if I'm not wrong. So they need to keep an older version of jQuery in it, but don't only rely on jQuery. Just learn vanilla JavaScript. It's faster. You can do a lot of good things with it. And in general, keep yourself updated all the time, because yes, maybe you're a good WordPress developer, you know how to build things from scratch, you know all the things, but then new things come out, new tools come out. WordPress core, it's updated. We have a new version of WordPress like once every 6 months. So never give for granted that you know everything and you don't need to refresh your memory or study new things. Always keep yourself updated with the new things and always check the documentation. Those are really the basics that a lot of people don't do, unfortunately, because it's boring. It's not exciting. But those are very, very important.
Yeah, I got it. And my last question, I want to ask about your YouTube channel. So I think everyone knows how hard it is to produce high quality content.
Yeah.
So what convinced you to start your own YouTube channel and get into it?
That's an interesting story. It was my bad English. Because as I said, back in Italy, I worked with WordPress for like 5-6 years. Then I moved here in Canada and I started doing like working for agencies and stuff like that, but I could never express myself correctly during technical meetings, because I don't know if it's the same for you in Armenia, but in Italy, we translate everything, even the technical terms. So I knew the name of a closure, but I knew the Italian name of a closure, how you call a function, or you call for each loop, how you call object-oriented programming or procedural programming. All these technical names, I knew the Italian name. And I never had, I studied English by myself, but I never had to talk about programming in English. So when I started working in an agency and I needed to talk programming during technical meetings, I was the worst. I didn't know any term. I was mistaking things, calling one thing for another. It was terrible. So I decided to, okay, I'm gonna basically relearn WordPress from scratch, but in English. And I'm gonna record myself while I do that. I recorded my first like 3-4 videos to just listen to them after recording it and try to identify mistakes or bad pronunciation or other things. And then after I had like 6 videos, that maybe I'm gonna publish them on YouTube because it might be helpful for someone else. And so I published my first 4 videos, and in a week I gained like 1,000 subscribers from 10. I was like, whoa, what, really? So people are good. And a lot of people were writing underneath my videos like, it's easy to understand you because you don't have a thick English accent. Your Italian accent makes it easier for non-native English speakers to understand what you're talking about. So I started, having fun. And because while working in the agencies, I started seeing all these mistakes, like people not knowing how to build a WordPress theme from scratch, not knowing how to build a plugin, not knowing how to interact with the database correctly. While I was working during my day, I was thinking, oh, I can make a tutorial about this issue that I just stumbled upon during my job. And so I was going back home and recording a tutorial in 20 minutes and then cutting it and pushing it as quick as possible. It was easier at the beginning because I never recorded my face, and it was just screen recording the code and me talking on top of it. Now it's a little bit more challenging because now you have to be like super produce your video. Like everything has to be cool, a cool camera shot. You have to show your face. Your audio quality has to be perfect. So now it's a little bit, it takes more time. It's more challenging. But yeah, at the beginning when I started, I was having so much fun. And it was just was great. So yeah, I did probably like 300 videos about WordPress. I'm not stopping. I started the Gutenberg tutorial, how to build a Gutenberg plugin from scratch, which is very challenging because it's a completely different architecture.
So yeah, this is another inspiring story, actually, of how willingness to learn more just pushes you to achieve greater things.
Thank you.
And finally, I have prepared a couple of Blitz questions for you very quickly, and I would like to sum up our interview with that.
Yeah.
Are you ready?
Go for it.
Okay. So what's uglier, red text or on blue background or blue text on red background?
Oh God, red text on blue background, definitely.
Okay. What do you prefer more, coding or designing?
Shit, no, you don't have to ask me that. Coding.
Okay. And I can actually see the answer to my next question in your background, but I'm still going to ask, Fender or Gibson guitars?
I have a Gibson on the other side, so
yeah,
Fender. Yeah, I'd say Fender. Okay.
Remote working or office life?
Oh, remote, 100% remote.
Oxygen or Elementor builder?
Elementor.
Okay, and the last one, Marvel or DC?
Oof. Marvel movies, DC comics. Can I answer that?
Yes, that's what I would answer as well.
Yeah.
Thank you. And yeah, this was the last Blitz question. And thank you very much. And on behalf of us, our TimeWeb team, and all of our viewers, it was really great, very insightful, and as I already mentioned, very motivational. And I'm 100% sure everything you said will help all of us to learn from others' mistakes instead of learning
my mistakes
from our own. Yeah. And to wrap it up, what will be the best way for our viewers to contact you?
You can check me on my YouTube channel, Alessandro Castellani. I try to answer pretty much every comment, or you can find me on Twitter at alecad with DDD and 3D, or my website, alecad.com. I have comments, or a forum, or like a contact form there. So it's pretty easy to reach me. I'm pretty much everywhere on the internet.
Awesome. Thank you once again. It was a pleasure having you here.
Yeah, it was very funny. Thank you so much. I had a great time.
Me too. Goodbye.
This video is brought to you by Tenweb, automated WordPress platform specifically designed for agencies. Sign up for a 14-day free trial right now and experience the true innovation.